So it's come to this, a final weapons pack. Well, I guess that really shouldn't be a disappointing thing, or, well, should we celebrate it? I don't know. I mean, they did sell okay, and sales did kind of decline, which is why we sort of stopped doing weapons packs. But hey, why not go out with a bang and offer one last weapon pack that brought new items to the table, newly tooled items, and a refresh of some cool weapons in sort of generic colors that could work with anyone. Hey, that's what a weapon pack is all about. All right, so yeah, the weapon pack program wound down with the End of Wars pack, which included quite a few numerous items. Although I have to say, I wish we had a little bit more money to spend on paint, because a lot of them wound up just being, single color items with absolutely no deco. Now, End of Wars confused a lot of people because we didn't really get to that story. It's not the story of the Great War, or that one in the past with King Grayskull and the Snake Men and all of that. And while there are legitimate Mattel, official bios that continued the story, the bio created for the End of Wars didn't tell the story of End of Wars. It was a completely different canon. So totally respect this, and they're well written, but canonically for classics, End of Wars was referring to this panel in the final mini-comic. So the battles between Skeletine and Dare was the End of Wars time. Not the bio that was issued years after the line ended was just kind of like, I guess, taking it in a different direction. Anyway, not knocking those at all, just kind of clarifying what the End of Wars was supposed to be. We just didn't get to enough of the story. So the hodgepodge that is this weapons pack, let's dive in. So first off, we have to talk about Trapjaw, because, you got to talk about Trapjaw. He's like one of the best-selling characters in the entire line because he's pretty darn awesome, and he's very customizable. In fact, we made sure when we did Trapjaw, that it also included the parts for Kronos, the character he is before he becomes Trapjaw. Now, like Trapjaw before him, other characters like Roboto, and we'll get to others too, had swappable parts. And there was actually a whole thing about making sure all the swappable parts had the same compatibility, meaning male to female parts, where the male part was in the item that plugs into the arm. And we actually had to swap that with a few figures to make sure that Roboto, Hurricane Hordak, and Trapjaw's parts could all be interchangeable. I remember particularly being a problem on Roboto, where the parts were accidentally inverted, where the peg was coming out of the wrist and the hole was in the accessory. So we had to swap that. And that was so we could do exactly what we're doing in this weapons pack, was take arm attachments from someone like Hurricane Hordak here and offer them in Trapjaw colors. Also in this pack, we offered Trapjaw parts in Roboto colors. So it was something very deliberate that was spread throughout the line. Of course, it does look a little odd that Trapjaw's got like a giant horde bat symbol as one of his attachments, but hey, why not? It's fun. At the end, this is a toy, and toys should be fun, and that's kind of what weapons packs are all about, is just finding alternate looks and displays. So yes, those big black attachments for Trapjaw started with Hurricane Hordak, and the silver ones started with Trapjaw, and are now for Roboto. All part of our grand scheme to make everything adaptable and adoptable. Adoptable? I don't know. Snappable. Pick a word, people. All right. What's this thing? That's the next big one in the pack, and actually probably one of the main reasons a lot of people bought the pack. Well, this snazzy suit of armor, or chest vest, I guess, harness, is for Rattlor. And if you're looking and saying, wait a minute, I had Rattlor as a kid, and he didn't have no chest vest, or maybe in proper English you said, no, he did not have a chest vest. Well, no, he didn't. But in 2000X, the 2001-2002 line, Rattlor did. Part of his redesign, sort of the Four Horsemen, everyone gets more armor and more spiky things and, all sorts of cool upgrades. He also got an upgraded name to the General, but that was just because the name Rattlor wasn't available at the time. Luckily, we were able to get access to the name again for Classics, and the version that was the toy and on the show was able to make it into Classics with this armor. So the armor being a big part of his look in 2000X in the animated, you now no longer had to steal the armor off of your 2000X figure, because we now had the armor that was intended to ship with this Rattlor figure. The reason it didn't was, well, the reason most items get costed away from a figure is because we can't afford it. And a big thing for Rattlor was that for any figure, for any toy, any industry, any brand, any company, every time a paintbrush touches the toy, you are charged by a vendor. And for Rattlor, we were charged every single time the paintbrush hit a scale. We thought those scales could be painted with one long stroke, but it wasn't working out. It was looking sloppy. So we had to pay for every single scale to be painted exactly, 1-to-1. So we had the choice of basically eliminating deco or eliminating the vest. And as brand manager, I made the call to eliminate the vest because I knew we couldn't ship the deco in a later weapon pack, but we did have the potential to hopefully get the vest done in a weapon pack, which is oddly and awesomely what we did. So that's why the hard choice had to be made. And instead of removing deco from the figure, I directed the team to remove the vest with the idea that maybe we'll get it out. And we did! And there was much rejoicing, so that now your Snake Man could be complete. All right, continuing the booted weapons. This one's a little different because it wasn't actually originally intended, or it wasn't costed in with the figure even from the beginning, and that's Natasha's sword. So Natasha came with just a shield, and that definitely disappointed people because almost every figure had 2 accessories, even if it had 2 heads. Now, while Natasha had a different look in the show versus the toy, and some people wanted both heads, and it was something we looked at, it wasn't unfortunately something we could afford because of the way the cape worked. And when we showed her off and she just had the cape and the shield, a lot of people felt that she was lacking. We did try to kind of sell in the idea that the cape was a second accessory. I mean, that is what it was intended for. It was meant for her to use as a actual net. And if you look at the original figure, which again had a very different face or mask thing, headgear, only came with, did not also come with a sword. But we had the sword tool, and it just didn't look like Natasha had the same value, I guess, as other figures. As far as we tried selling in the idea that the net, her cape, was her second accessory, people just weren't buying that one. So, all right, hey, no problem. We got the sword, we got the tool already, and you want Natasha to be armored up, and obviously there are many options, and that's why we had many, many weapon packs, but I have no issue doing everything we can to get out the stuff. So now, if you just want to display her sword next to her on the shelf, have her armed, or, you're selling a more complete Natasha on eBay, hey, why not? You can now throw in the sword, and she has her needed 2 accessories that pretty much almost every other figure had. All right, next up we have some sort of just generic accessories. We had the silver, the gold, and the green. The green were intended for a potential slime mutant He-Man. The silver were just cool mace and sword from Sir Laserlot that we could do in generic sword colors now that we had a mace and sword. The gold ones in the middle there, while unfortunately they are not part of a planned Kowl figure, as people may have said, they were actually supposed to be with Granamir. So unlike things like Rattlor's vest that people sort of knew about, no one ever knew that Granamir was going to come with those books and a bunch of gold weapons. You can see them in the art on the package. They're slightly behind him, if you will. And originally, in pre-production, he was going to come with those books you saw and a whole bunch of gold weapons that were just redecos of existing tools. Unfortunately, both the books and the weapons had to be cut. And while fans were never told about these, so it's not like they were disappointed they didn't show up and they could demand it like they did with Rattlor's vest, well, it always bugged me that we couldn't get to them. So I was really glad with the weapon pack we were able to do these. So these are intended to go with Granamir. But, of course, anyone can hold them. And speaking of a gun anyone can hold, the one who should hold this one is Strobo! 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 Okay, yeah, you're like, who the heck is Strobo? I know, I get it. This is Strobo. He's a little bit of an obscure character. If you want to learn more about him, well, that's a whole other, that literally is a whole other YouTube video. He did not have a figure in the vintage line, but he was very popular from his appearance in the UK comics, and that he was planned for the vintage line. So if you're looking at someone like Zodak and going, wait a minute, Strobo looks like he's just Zodak with some other parts, and that's because, well, yes, he was. He was a Zodak head on a Cyclone body, and yeah, mix and match parts, much like a lot of the planned 87 figures were. So yeah, if you want to learn more about him, go check out the director's commentary video just about Strobo on this channel and playlist. When the figure shipped, he came with a orb accessory, and he also came with a second head, albeit that head was not for him. We did have another accessory plan, and unlike the Granamir items, this one also was one that was shown. Fans saw images of Strobo with a planned blaster accessory, along with a second head for Zodak with a K, and then the cosmic orb there. So when he showed up at conventions and didn't have the gun, of course, fans were like, whoa, wait a minute, where's our gun? And it was basically like, well, because Strobo captures the power of light and doesn't need a gun, and fans were like, but we saw the gun, and I'm like, okay, I know, we can't afford it. it was the same issue. Sometimes you have more things than you can put into a figure. And we try not to show things until we know they're shipping, like we did successfully with Granamir, unsuccessfully with Strobo. So having to choose which accessory to cut, well, it came down to kind of what was going to look best in a future weapon pack. And the orb felt like it really needed to be with him. And cutting the extra head for Zodak would be weird because I honestly didn't know if we'd be able to sell just a pack of heads. Of course, until we did sell a pack of heads. But again, YouTube video for another time. So it came down to the fact that his gun accessory would probably work the best if we could release in a weapon pack, and much like Rattlor's armor, that was sort of pinned to my walls, like, okay, let's try to get to that. And we did, and there was much rejoicing. All right, finally, the creme de la creme, the piece that I think most people bought this pack for, I know I already said that about Rattlor's armor, was Cowl. And if you're asking what is a Cowl, well, you are in a club with 943 other people. So Cowl is, well, he's not quite an Orko, and he's not quite a Madame Raz, and, oh, yeah. Well, he's sort of he's one of the many sidekicks from the Princess of Power show, I guess would be the easiest way to say it. He's really associated with Bo, but I guess so is Arrow the horse, and, well, I guess you could have two things. I mean, Ariel had, the fish and the seagull and the crab. All right, well, the original Cowl toy from the 80s was yellow, and yellow was not the color Cowl was in the show. I suppose the designers probably thought this popped better either as a toy or wasn't popping in the animation, and the color had to be changed. Why was he changed from yellow to orange, brown? I don't know, but there's precedent for both colors. And when you've got precedent for two colors with one tool, well, that just makes the financial people at any company happy. Now, there is a PMS reference for Cowl, and one of the interesting things was when we sort of left it up to the Horsemen which version we were going to put out first. I don't think we gave them direction, and they actually came back with one that was a little more pink. And I know he does kind of look pinkish sometimes on the show, depending on the episode. And this was one of the only times that Terry and I, was it Terry? Maybe it was Ruben. I don't know, but we actually vetoed the Horseman's paint job. We felt like it wasn't accurate to the show or the vintage toy, and we changed it. And so the yellow paint job was created in Mattel. And I honestly, I remember being surprised because we never do that. The Horsemen always nail everything, but I think they kind of went for like a blend of the two. I don't want to, I mean, I'm not at all knocking them. I'm just saying this was like the one time that we actually made a deliberate choice. And so we went with yellow first, and then we used the PMS colors to create the second version that is shown here with Lookie. That's how he was released, and thank you to Foosh for this image, but I guess since I mailed them the product, that I'm allowed to use the image, I guess? I don't know. But we did do the, of course, Cowl and Lookie 2-pack later on that brought the animated style or animated colors, and never released kind of that third pink one that the Horsemen created. Maybe we could have. I kind of wish I had more shots of it. But honestly, what I really loved was that we got out two versions in two completely different ways. The first one in this weapons pack, and then the second one with a flying stand in a 2-pack with Lookie. And that's kind of what made classics just so cool, the ability to do that kind of stuff.